Jazz Joyce lies quite sadly down here with her horrendous, voodoo injury. I hope this is not a metaphor for how Wales are looking ahead of the 2025 Rugby World Cup, or indeed how Jazz is looking at the minute. I hope she's currently got 2 legs.
Yeah.
I think even the most feverish Scotland fan would agree ahead of this game coming up in just a few days' time. Wales kick off their World Cup against Scotland. We're going to look at both teams. We'll look at that game in particular as well ahead of the World Cup.
Yeah, and how both teams are looking and what their prospects are like going into the World Cup generally. So these two teams, I think it's probably fair to say, obviously we both come from the background of being Welsh fans.
Yeah, that is my background.
As much as we try and cover it up.
I did a degree in being a Welsh fan.
Yeah.
It was the worst experience of my life.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say these two are each other's closest rivals in the women's version of the game, because they've been on a similar level for a long period of time, and usually when they play each other there's only really 1 or 2 tries in it. There have been a couple of exceptions recently where Scotland have ran away with it.
Yeah.
Because they've been better in the last few years.
Well, you look at, so this year's Six Nations game was close in the end, and Scotland had a period of looking on top, and then Wales came back into it late on, so the game ended up close. I think there was a WXV warm-up last year is the only time there's been more than the score in it at some point in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For over 5 years. So that game, Scotland ran away from battered Wales.
Yeah.
And it was a much changed team for both sides, but Wales were poor. Other than that, pretty much every game between these two, there's been a score. You think about the most famous of those, the last World Cup, again, opening round, won by a late kick by Ciara Bevan to win it right at the death. So I think we're looking at something similar this year. I think this is probably the most enticing and most exciting game of the opening weekend in Manchester. So this is going to be the real game that I think kicks things off and will probably decide who gets out of that pool alongside Canada.
Yeah. Should we talk about Scotland first?
Shall we?
How they're shaping up going into this. Because Scotland are a team that when they're not playing Wales, I love to watch. Because they play such an entertaining brand of rugby. And similar to Scotland men's fans, if you've not watched much women's rugby before, welcome. I would say that the mentality of the Scottish women's team is quite similar to the men's team in that they are extremely... They stringently stick to their game plan at all times, and that they go, I don't care what the weather is, I don't care what the opposition are doing, I don't care how we're playing, we are going to do what we do well all the time.
So they have had, I think, a very similar situation in that Brian Eason, their coach, came in and was part of that Glasgow setup under Gregor Townsend way back when, has then been in the Scotland setup, been part of age grade pathways, both men and women, and then took over as head coach in 2020 over COVID, over some major upheaval. He stepped in initially as a caretaker. The players loved him. He got amazing results. They drew with France, and he stayed in, and he took the job full time. And then from there, we've then seen that team develop and get better and better and better until about, I'd say, just over a year ago. And I think they've kind of hit the same point Scotland men are at, where they've kind of stagnated.
Yeah.
And they've kind of hit a point where it looks to me like Eason will continue keeping them at this incredibly high standard, but he probably won't push them on any higher. Same as I think Townsend has with Scotland, right? They'll be an 8 out of 10 team forever. I think that's kind of the situation both Scotland teams are in.
Yeah.
However, the two teams have made different decisions on this, right? So the men have kept Gregor Townsend, and they've gone, well, what if he pushes up to an 8.5? And the women have gone, well, Brian Eason's moving on after this World Cup. Who knows if it's his call, if it's whatever else. We don't know. So that's the current situation. This is Eason's last campaign in charge. Sometimes that really motivates a team. Sometimes that does kind of have a little bit of a hangover on it of going well, why are we playing here? We don't even know who our next head coach is. That sort of factor. There is another factor around Scotland, though, that I think is worth bringing up early.
Go on.
The contract situation.
Yes.
So more than half this squad, apparently, do not have contracts beyond the last game of the World Cup, beyond the end of October. That's the end of their contract, and then they will be unemployed, more than half this squad. There's been an ongoing situation where the SRU basically offered some of them extremely poor contracts and some players no contract at all. And it has led to massive upheaval. And big chunks where they should be focusing and drilled in on this World Cup they have been in negotiations. And Rachel Malcolm, their captain, is one of the best captains in the game. I think you put alongside Sia Khaleesi as like the standout, the most like brilliant in terms of leading their team, being outspoken, doing the media stuff really well, talking to referees, all of this.
Being
like,
a figure of the nation that she's from as well.
However, the uncertainty is enormous on this team, and I think that will play a factor in this World Cup.
Rachel Malcolm's been so outspoken about this as well.
Yeah.
Has completely just said to the media, the public, like, our union need to do better. And she has been the voice of the players on this. And I think that has been as outstanding as anything she's done on the pitch recently, is that she has been so just upfront with absolutely everything.
She, like, really fights them on the pitch and off. You know, you get that real vibe. And there's a chance this brings Scotland close together. But also, like, it has meant they haven't been able to focus fully in preparation.
Yeah.
So is this going to have a knock-on impact? It's hard to say. I think, were they themselves in the warm-up games is a fair question to ask. They had some really good moments, but then they let games slip repeatedly, right? Yeah. And I don't want to, like, speculate on, is that because they haven't been doing enough, work and they weren't fit enough, whatever. We don't know where teams are at various points of World Cup cycles, right? Like, teams are trained to peak at World Cups, so it happens every single men's and women's World Cup where a team will have a massive drop off after 20 minutes and it will come good in the tournament itself. People will be like, this worry they don't look fit enough. You're like, yeah, because they're being blasted in fitness. Yeah. That's fine. They're professionals at the end of the day. You've got to hope they move past this and they move on. For the sake of that 80 minutes, and then really it's on the SRU to resolve this. Definitely. And it's outrageous they haven't resolved this over the few months they've had in the lead up to the World Cup. You'd have thought they'd at least do what Wales did and just kind of like put something on the table and make sure it's okay. The Wales handled that situation incredibly badly, but at least like it felt like they managed to get something agreed by the deadline. This has just rolled on and on and on, just been constant uncertainty. Do you think it has an impact on where they're going?
Yes, obviously, because it's professional sport and they're not being treated like professional sports people. No. And that is sadly kind of the end of it. But at the same time, these are professionals for a reason. They will be able to get their heads down and just get on with the job. Like, that is a part of being a professional sports person, is being able to move through setbacks.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about the team themselves, right? Let's talk about the play.
Well, there's one more factor I think that we need to talk about in this. In terms of things that can galvanise a team, is the way that everybody has rallied around Emma Wassell.
Yes.
The second row for them, who's been through an extremely long-term injury, which was career-threatening at best, let's say. There was points where she wasn't able to walk, let alone able to run, and so on, right? And she is an extremely popular figure in the camp. Yeah. And she has, in the last few weeks, not only got back out on the rugby pitch, but played for Scotland in the warm-up games, and she is in the squad to go to the World Cup. Yeah. And it's incredible, like, following some of the players on social media, the way that everybody has rallied around her. And again, like, she is clearly extremely good friends with a lot of, she's best mates with Rachel Malcolm, the captain. And clearly it's had a huge impact on the squad, having her back and kind of that story of inspiration being within the squad. And that's something I think is genuinely incredible and can have such a positive impact on a team, having a figure like that in there. Yeah.
So she's a brilliant, brilliant player. Yes. She'd be one of the players I'd pull out anyway. She's one of the players I think, like, if you were to talk, we talked about the Women's Lions a few days ago, but she's someone I'd throw right in there. Like, she is a brilliant second row, incredibly dynamic, brilliant line-out forward.
One of the best line-out forwards, certainly in Europe.
Yeah. Alongside Sarah Bonham in the second row, who's a brilliant line-out forward as well.
Yeah.
But, like, Wassell's all-round game, her ability with the ball as well. I'd recommend her episode, The Good Scouts of Rugby, from a few months ago. The episode afterwards was terrible, and the guest was, like, absolutely dreadful the week after, and really let the side down. But her episode is, like, one of the best. There's an argument it might be the best rugby podcast to listen to this year. Like, she's so funny and so engaging and talks so well about both that and losing her mum quite recently, who was like the biggest Scotland fan in the world and absolutely loved it and loved rugby. And she talks so well about that and is such a like inspiring, brilliant figure to have back in the team. And she will make a difference. Yeah. Her and Bon are running that second row, which has been an issue for Wales over the last few weeks. Like, the line-out has been a consistent problem for Wales, I think. Particularly when Kelsey Jones isn't there. Like, Cerys Phillips, obviously very experienced. Molly Reardon has made a bit of an impact there, I think, and is very promising in that area as a hooker. But Wales tend to select 5 flankers, essentially, You often see Georgia Evans fill in that second
Abby
row.
Fleming.
And Abby Fleming, obviously, who
Gwen Crabb.
was a flanker, very much converted there. And then Gwen Crabb is a second row, but is
Yeah.
not necessarily a proper out-and-out line-out forward.
She's
Right?
5'7",
lock.
you know,
Yeah.
which isn't one of the tallest types of second rows.
She's a typical tight head lock, brings a
Yeah.
lot of weight in the scrum, a lot of ball carrying ability, a lot of nous,
Yeah.
but isn't a proper line out forward.
Yeah.
So that's been a real issue for Wales. And then Scotland potentially having 2 expert second row ball pinchers in there, huge for them.
Yeah.
As is plenty more in their pack though. They have the other option in the second row, putting Jade Conkle in,
Yeah.
who now plays everywhere, plays second row, can play prop, plays probably best known as number 8.
Yeah.
One of the best ball carriers in the game. Went vegan a few years ago and kind of trimmed down a bit and has changed in shape and become much more dynamic. It is now much faster and perhaps doesn't have the same raw power, but has lost nothing of the attitude and ability
Vegan
to
power
carry
is
the
like
ball.
in Scott Pilgrim.
Exactly, that's what she's
I'm
gone
hearing
for.
here.
Yeah. So if she eats a plate of chicken parmesan, then things might be, doomed for Scotland, but we'll see.
As well as that, they've recently started playing Rachel Malcolm in the second row as an option there.
Yeah.
Rare combination. She's started her test career as a hooker and has added 5 years onto it by playing a game at second row. She's a 6 by trade. They've got a lot of options in that back 5 because they've got a really strong back row of Rachel Malcolm. As you mentioned, Jade Conkle's one option there. Evie Gallagher at number 8 is one of the best ball carriers
fantastic for
out there.
And I think a big part of Conkle being moved into other positions
Yeah.
is the fact that Evie Gallagher's playing so well, such a brilliant jackal threat as well as ball carrier.
Yeah, Rachel McLaughlin at 7.
Who was in Ballymore
Outstanding. Of course.
as a child, was in Ballymore.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah, TV show over here, for those of you who don't know. And Alex
Couple
Stewart,
houses.
who
Yes.
is young
We
and explosive.
Talked a lot before the Six Nations, and then she played a few games off the bench, but was very good.
Yeah.
I rate her enormously highly, but it may be that her time comes shortly after this.
Yeah, her ceiling is very, very high though, and even if it is for short bursts off the bench, again, if you're a Scotland men's fan, reminds me of Hamish Watson a little
Yeah.
bit in that she
Yeah.
comes off the pitch and she will get touches of the ball and she will run through people.
Yeah.
She's a huge ball carrier,
think-
huge hitter.
When they play Fiji, I kind of expect a masterclass.
Yeah.
I'd put a quid on a getting player of the match there.
The big selection, and kind of, I guess, the controversial one, is that Lana Skeldon has made it
Yeah.
in despite an injury. Against Ireland, she went down screaming, and it sounded like a horrible injury. And it's one of those where clearly Brian Eason's kept his cards close to his chest and doesn't want anybody to know how bad her injury
Yeah.
is. They've not really released any press statements or anything about just how she's getting on.
I think the belief is she'll miss the first game, but be back for the second 2.
Okay, yeah.
The first game, though, is the critical one against Wales.
Yeah. But she is one of the best players in this Scotland
Yeah.
team. She's an outstanding line-out thrower and is brilliant around the park.
Kicks goals,
Yeah.
does everything.
Occasionally, yeah.
The most complete hooker imaginable.
Yeah. She's outstanding.
They do have to come in, though, Ellis Martin,
Yes.
who is brilliant.
So good. Such a great work rate around the park. It scans that she's had Fraser Brown as one of her coaches in the last few
Yeah.
years, in the way that her main attribute is ability to get off the deck and make another tackle.
Yeah.
That she will do that all day long and really good at the back of mauls as well.
I had her as my super sub on the Fantasy Six Nations a few weeks back, and she was consistently raking in points because just
Yeah.
the amount of work she gets through consistently. So there's a tip: I don't know if we haven't seen World Cup fantasy yet, but if it
Yeah.
comes along, Ellis Martin,
off
super
the bench.
sub.
I like that. Onto the back
The
line.
back line, Emma Orr.
Emma
Emma
Orr.
Orr.
The X Factor player
Yes.
in this team, for sure.
Yeah.
Really quick, really strong, but one of the most balanced players that you'll see at this World Cup.
Yeah.
And everybody who's ever played with her, trained with her, just says, she's one of the best rugby players I've ever seen.
When she first came as an 18-year-old, I remember Rachel Malcolm talking about how she was like nothing they'd ever seen before.
Yeah.
Her speed, her awareness. Defensively, she's improved so much over the last year as well.
She never looks like she's going at full speed. Either.
Yeah,
She's one of
yeah.
those players who just glides through gaps. And you go, oh, wait, she's at the try line already. You know?
We talked in the video on the main channel that may or may not be up by now on how much more important bullshit players are
Yeah.
in the women's game than the men's. And so you look at Emma Orr, you look at Fran McGee, you look at Chloe Rolly, who I think has lost a yard of pace in the last year or so. She's starting to become one of the more senior players in this team. But still, right, that ability, like a later age Stuart Hogg, but not that late. Like when Stuart Hogg
There's a fate no one wants.
was an experienced player, but was still talking to his kids.
Yeah.
Was that period Stuart Hogg, right? Of has bulked up a bit and is now a very different threat from the back. Of runs it back, smashes it up, and isn't necessarily going through gaps in the same way, but is setting such a target for the other players to play off.
Yeah,
and is so good at just maintaining both positionally but also just like if they're in a situation where they put a long kick through on a turnover ball or something, and she's the only player back, she's one of the best players in the world at dealing with the situation. But to stay on her own feet, to just like buy some time, to get a kick if she needs to, like those sort of situations is where Chloe Rollie thrives, rather than necessarily the counter actually got like built her name on.
Yeah. Now, in terms of who's going to feed this back line, they've got some really good options in there as well. There is, at 10, Helen Nelson, an outstanding game manager, just a proper student of the game, like knows how to manage games inside out. And Lisa Thompson, who looks like a crash ball centre, like traditionally plays like one, but is nowadays more known for her distribution of kicking game, which are really, really good. They're unfortunately missing Meryl Smith, who's been ruled out with an ACL injury, unfortunately, who's a brilliant player, was such an important cog for them in the last couple of years.
Played everywhere.
Yeah.
Played centre, played fullback.
Will get the ball wide in whatever position she's picked in.
Yeah.
And it's so important when you've got speed merchants like the McGee's of the world, like Rona Lloyd, you know, like Chloe Rollie, all of these that we could mention. There's no point having them if you don't have somebody who can get them the ball. Yeah. And it's frustrating for Scotland that they don't have Meryl Smith. So I'd imagine that will slightly change Lisa Thompson's game and will require her to distribute the ball more. So just get the ball early into Emma.
Which she can do. She can do everything. Yeah. She's like a really well-rounded centre. She's sort of the model of like, you remember like 2019-20-ish when the model of an ideal centre was like a Hadley Parks, like a
Paula CK.
Yeah. No, but like a slightly boring guy who crashes the ball up but also like distributes and has a kicking game.
Yeah.
And is like never puts anything on themselves. And that's sort of Lisa Thompson's role. Like very few players are coming in. I don't mean this isn't like and are thrilled by Lisa Thompson, but she makes every player around her better.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
And she just improves everyone else's game. It allows
System
Emma
player.
Orr, like the amount of times you see her straight in the line, it allows Emma Orr to like pick a curved line on the outside, or the time where she just like throws an early skip pass and gets around it. Like she's an incredibly smart rugby player as well as a big carrier.
And they've also got Hannah Walker.
Yeah, one to mention Hannah Walker.
Really, really great utility back. She's in the squad as a fullback.
Fullback. Yeah, like, she played a lot for rugby at Edinburgh.
Yeah, also at centre and on the wing.
Yeah. But I think, again, that Fiji game, keep an eye out for her.
Yeah.
Like, keep an eye out for her. Slot in your fantasy team that 1 week.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Wales?
Let's talk about Wales.
So, Wales in a weird spot. Finished bottom of the Six Nations, then went out to Australia, and that first game we talked about on this channel was superb.
Yeah.
Putting their best performance for a couple of years. Just like, I wouldn't say blew Australia off the park, but like was so comprehensively on top most of the game.
Really deserved that win.
Yeah, really, really deserved. Scored a couple of nice tries through the back line, which has been a problem for them. They've been a very forward-oriented team. But the defence was brilliant. They were so much more accurate, and they changed their system a little bit, as we talked about in that video. And then the second test rolled around, and they lost it very heavily. And they also lost Alex Callender to an injury in the first 4 minutes. She said she thought her World Cup was over in that moment. It isn't. She's expected to be fit for the Scotland game.
Because she is built different.
Truly.
It is known. Yeah, that first Australia game was a bit of an awakening for some of the Welsh players. Now they massively changed the squad for the second game, so that may have, but so did Australia, so, you know, that may have been a factor in all of that. But the big thing for me, I think, is how they used Claykie George was much closer to what Sean Lynn, the Wales head coach, who has been the head coach of Gloucester Hartpury, coached them to 3 consecutive Premiership Women's Rugby titles. How he's used her with Gloucester Hartpury, where he's used her essentially like as a membrane for the backline around her, where because her passing and kicking game are both exemplary, like really, really good. Whereas with Cunningham, under Johan Cunningham, the previous Wales coach, I think there was a bit of uncertainty on how to use Claykie George. She was being used quite similar to their previous 10, Eleanor Snowsill, who retired. And I think at that point, Cunningham didn't want to completely change the system around Claykie George coming in. And it didn't quite suit her. We didn't really see the best in her. However, in that Australia game, it was really great because instead of kicking off 9, as Wales did typically under Cunningham, and also in the Six Nations just gone by, they were instead kicking off George. George has a really good spiral kick on her, which is a really useful weapon.
Nickname 50-22.
Yeah, because she has kicks that are notoriously difficult to catch. That is what players who play against her in the PWR find. She's really good at letting the ball bounce in the backfield and giving her wingers really good opportunity to get under them. So when Wales have wingers like Jasmine Joyce, who is one of the quickest players in this World Cup, they've got Caris Cox, who's extremely abrasive and physical, plays either centre or wing. Probably better off on the wing at the moment, but it's difficult to tell at this point. And Nell Metcalf playing at fullback, who has shown she's really good on the kick chase.
Really making a name for herself at the minute.
Yeah, and a great kicker as well.
Yeah, went to the last World Cup as a teenager. But I think this year, literally in these last couple of games, has established herself, was probably Wales' standout player maybe in that loss to Australia in the second test,
Yeah.
and was player of the match in the first one where they won. Scored 2 tries as well. So has really come into her own over the last few months, and I'm really excited by that. Branwen Metcalf, her sister, who's a back rower, is uncapped, 18 years old,
Yeah.
and is also going to this World Cup, which is a bit of a surprise.
Under 18s captain,
Yeah.
wasn't in a previous Wales squad, not even the training squad for
Yeah.
this World Cup, or wasn't named in it publicly.
Has snuck in out of nowhere, essentially. So that's really intriguing what they plan to do with her. Is it just an experience thing? They're not really
Yeah.
planning to change the team
She's
too
a
much.
big ball carrying
Who knows?
8 as well, which is quite useful.
But it's one thing Sean Lynn's done, right, is it was a criticism we both had of the previous regime under Johan Cunningham, was that Wales did not change the team a lot. They played basically the same team, and they had like 2 or 3 positions where they could slot someone in, but otherwise they picked sort of the same 18 or 19 players every week, and so they had no depth. And they had positions in which either you would have someone get injured, or more concerningly, someone have a massive drop in form, and you couldn't bring anyone else in for them. And that became a huge problem. What we've seen with Lynn since he's come in is he has backed a bunch of youngsters. He's brought them both into training and then given them game time, and gone, okay, well, if you can't do it here, we will just create an option out of nowhere. Even if it's someone who hasn't played much PWR or hasn't played much Celtic Challenge, we're just giving them a go to try and develop them into an option longer term, and we'll just commit to this as a project.
And we've seen those. Like you mentioned the second row issue earlier, right? Wales have brought through Alal Pearce and Tilly Vucai, 2 extremely young but tall and athletic second rows who could be the future of that position.
Alal Pearce was brilliant in the Six Nations,
Yeah.
having been chucked in kind of out of nowhere as a name I don't think many people expected to see play. It leaves Wales in an interesting spot because I think they play a much more abrasive and conservative game than Scotland still, even though Lynn has come on and changed things a little bit. And I think that's the way they want to play. The big factor here is Alex Callender, who I think is the best player either team can field.
Yes, I agree.
She is world class. If she is fit to play, that gives Wales a massive edge going into this game.
She is joint with Jack Morgan as the best player in Wales.
Yeah.
You know, it's an extremely similar comparison, having a captain in the back row who Wales depend on so heavily. She is not only Wales' top tackler, she's also their top ball carrier and also the top turnover merchant.
Yeah.
She's all 3 of those things for Wales, and also she's their captain.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the thing is, if you're all of those things in one go, of course you're the captain, aren't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, she is properly world class. She's also realistically probably Wales' best line-out forward as well.
She's up there.
She's up there. There's a lot that rests on her. So if she actually is fit for the Scotland game, that makes a huge difference. And it's difficult to know how much poker the coaches are playing here around Skeldon and Callender's injuries, because, as I say, like, this game comes down to such tiny margins, and you don't want to give anything away.
Yeah. Wales' backline is building a little bit. I think we saw their kicking game adapt over those 2 Australia tests. The interesting thing, you mentioned the use of Flaky George. Kayleigh Powell came in at 10 for the second game, who is less of a kicking 10, and Wales looked much worse for it.
Yeah.
And I think maybe they are a little bit reliant on Flaky George stepping up and taking that role.
Yeah.
She is someone who I think likes the game to come to her rather than take it by the scruff of the neck, right? And she's like a brilliant tactical decision maker. But I don't think she, unlike a lot of 10s, and certainly 10s like, Wales men have seen over the last few years, naming Dan Biggest book isn't here, never mind. A lot of 10s like to kind of go in and boss everyone around, and I think Flaky George likes to be left to her own devices to play her own game.
Yeah.
And that is when you get the most out of her. And I think we perhaps saw Cunningham try and put too much on her and ask her to be like a traditional fly half and run everything and tell everyone what to do. And what she wants to be doing is just slotting in and selecting the passes and the kicks she wants to make, and just focusing on her own game. And we've seen that start to happen a little bit.
Yeah. Whereas Kayleigh Powell, the other option, is kind of the inverse of that a little bit, in that she is just a proper baller. That is the word that I would give to her. In the Six Nations, she came in and she chucked the ball about, and she took a lot of risks. She can play either 10, 12 or 15. Pretty much equally well.
Yeah.
She's very good in any of those positions, and she's got a really, really good skill set on her. Really good option, especially to have on the bench. Because
Less of a kicking 10, though.
Yeah. Certainly in terms of like long kicking game, she's got a good creative kicking game, like chips over the top, little grubbers in behind, crossfields, stuff like that. She's really, really useful with. But as you say, like slapping the ball, hitting 50-22s in the way that Flaky George does. There's a bit of a variation in those two as 10s. In the 12 channel, Wales have recently been going with Courtney Keat, who has typically been a winger or a fullback, an extremely good counter-attacker when she played at fullback, but positionally got herself wrong and missed a few tackles when she was playing there. And since moving to 12, it's been inspired by Sean Lynn. She hadn't played that. She's played 13 at club level for Bristol quite a bit, but hadn't really played at 12 before. And this has been inspired because defensively, she's not really put a foot wrong because she's quick, and Wales have needed a quick centre who can defensively cover a lot of ground, especially on the catch-up when teams get on the outside of them.
She's the build for 12, which really helps.
Super ball carrier, and she's so good at just busting like one-on-one tackles and finding weak shoulders, which is what made her a good fullback. But having that in the 12 channel where she can get the ball off 9 and pick holes in the defensive line, get Wales on the front foot is really good. She's built a nice partnership with Hannah Dalla Valle at 13, who has been on pretty good form this year.
Been playing her best rugby for a little while.
Yeah. I think this Six Nations and certainly that first test against Australia
looked much. Again, you don't want to speculate, but like some of her comments as well, it felt a bit like the captaincy was hanging heavy on her. And she was saying things about how she felt like, oh, all the girls are going to the beach, but I can't because I'm captain, and you know, or everyone else went out for an ice cream, and I felt like, oh, I've got to set an example, I've got to be, you know, and you know, like lead the nutrition program. And I think like maybe it was perhaps weighing a bit too heavy on her, and that showed in a game a couple of times. And I think she has looked a much better player.
Sean Lynn said, I've not seen the Hannah I've coached at Gloucester Hartpury for the last couple of years. And I feel like, I mean, again, I'm judging off a test series here, of which she only played one game, but her stock has risen so much. And I feel like she looks like the Gloucester Hartpury Hannah Dalla Valle because she looked excellent. Like she was brilliant in the PWR final, and it's really exciting prospect, the thought of her playing for Wales in this back line in the World Cup.
Okay, so this leaves one big question. 2 teams get out of each pool. We expect Canada will be one of them. Right? Who do you think? Who would you have in the driver's seat to be the other one?
At the moment, I would have Scotland. However, if Alex Callender is genuinely fit and not just like she can do 20 minutes off the bench, like she's genuinely fit to play 80 minutes, that changes things massively. And I don't want to write off a Wales team with Alex Callender captaining them because she is just a warrior and a test match player.
I feel like Scotland have been the better side over the last year. But like my jellies are pointing towards Wales taking this to Manchester.
I know what you mean. I feel like this is the first time we've played Scotland in a few years, and I've thought this is the most confident I've felt as a Welsh fan.
Wales had a disaster game in that second test against Australia, but they were so good in the first game, and that will largely be the team that plays. Largely those players will come back out. Alex Callender will hopefully be there. If Callender plays, I fancy it. And Scotland have all of the disruption off the pitch happening, and the fact they have looked slightly down over the.
Which you don't want to see.
They look decent. Like I don't mean to criticise them.
But you don't want to see that going to.
No, you don't.
You want to see teams at their best.
This is the thing, right? Like my gut says, like, oh, Scotland will get out of the pool, but Wales will win that one-off game. But that's not how it works. Like whoever wins that game, unless one team loses.
It's a shootout. It's a shootout.
So I don't know. It's a really tight one. It's a really tight one. I can see it going either way.
Yeah, me too. I think that's going to be one of the games of the pool stage for sure.
I think so.
Okay, with that in mind, with 2 teams that were just covered there, if you had to pick one player for Scotland to look out for, for someone who's never watched the Scottish women's team play before, who would you pick out as an exciting player?
So Emma Orwifra obviously is the most exciting player. I will also mention Ellis Martin, if she's potentially starting, who I'm a huge fan of. Just in terms of absolute work rate from a hooker, but also being like a proper hooker who's like able to throw into the line out, a brilliant scrummaging hooker by all accounts, like something Fraser Brown, who was previously their forwards coach, spoke of. It's just like how good a scrummer she is. So I kind of like, as my rogue shout, like I really rate Ellis Martin, and I think maybe keep an eye on her.
I will then go to the flip side and I'll pick a back instead. You mentioned Emma Orr there, but in terms of somebody who is just going to be entertaining, from a sheer entertainment factor, I'll go Francesca McGee.
How did I not pick Fran McGee?
Yeah, who is outstanding, a proper out and out pace and footwork winger. Really, really exciting player. Expected to score some tries.
Yeah, this is the Fran McGee fan YouTube channel as well. Like fan club YouTube channel. And I don't know how we didn't talk about Fran McGee at all in this video or in the previous one.
So Wales, one player to pick out for them.
It's Alex Callender, isn't it? It's the thing. Like it's Alex Callender, who is the best player on that team by a margin.
A shout out to
one of the best players in the world.
A shout out to Cecilia Tuipulotu as well, who Welsh fans have grown to love in the last few years. I'll
throw out that like one non-Alex Callender player.
Okay.
So you're saying Cecilia Tuipulotu?
No, I'm saying Alex Callender still.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I mean, Kira
Okay,
Bevan's
no, I'll throw out one non-Alex
obvious one.
Callender player. Nell Metcalf.
I was gonna suggest Nell
Really
Metcalf.
exciting young fullback. Hits lines well, brings that left foot kicking option, and I could just see this being her coming of age World Cup.
In which case, if you're taking Nell Metcalf, I'll go for the loose heads, the two loose heads.
Yeah.
Gwenffian Pierce, who is superb. Like, we compared this in the office the other day, right? It very much feels for like older Welsh fans, which I'm outraged this is now the case. Gethin Jenkins and Paul James as that counterpart. So Gwenffian Pierce feels like Gethin Jenkins. Good scrummager, but great ball carrier, exceptional jackler, and tackle, work rate, all of that. Maisie Davis, the young loose head who's come in the last few years, though, and those who kind of are battling for the show, literally this year, rather, is just like clearly loves to scrummage, loves to carry the ball, loves to go hard.
She's
feels
fucking nails.
She is the Paul James to Gwenffian's Gethin Jenkins. And I'm really excited by that battle between the two of them.
You wouldn't like to meet her in a scrum, would you?
No.
No. Well, that's really exciting. That is the second game of the World Cup, I want to say. No, third game of the World Cup, I want to say.
Third game.
Yep, Scotland v Wales. It's going to be a belter, as are probably all the games both these teams play in the whole World Cup. And also, probably every game in the World Cup. Rugby.